Yo, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the It's Needed podcast, where we discuss real issues involving law enforcement and the community. It's your boy Ryan Tillman, founder of Breaking Barriers United, and I'm joined today by the one and only light-skinned wonder himself, Mr. Oh No, it's the Popo. Hey, did you shave the stash last time, or is this fresh again?
No.
You got rid of
I think I shaved it. It was gone last week.
It was gone last week. You brought the Mr. Clean look back though. So
attention to detail.
I think you lost a bet. Didn't you have a bet going on or something like that with that?
Not with this one. My last one I did though. This one I was just growing out because I wasn't allowed leaving the house. So that was my rebel stash.
Hey, shout out to our special guest though, who does pay attention to detail.
My
bro.
guy, exactly. My guy.
So we got my boy Anthony, aka Tony Madrano. He is one of my good friends. I've known Tony since we were middle school.
Yeah,
dang near middle school, bro.
Yeah.
Tony was the guy when we were in high school, bro, that had all the cars, bro. Like, I can recall a time when I was younger and I had to be in middle school that Tony had a right-hand drive car, bro.
Yeah, that is true.
The stuff you only see like on Fast and the Furious in England.
Yeah,
and
man.
Tony was like 12.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
See, the thing is, I grew up in a mechanic shop, so my parents were always wrenching, so that's why I had access to the cars. So Pops would always be like, okay, this one's for you, and this one's for you.
Tony was 9 years old pulling up to elementary school with a whip, bro.
So you had a car that you drove, but like you were in the passenger seat driving for.
Yeah.
Only one in America.
I would crash, bro. I would crash.
Yeah. And I'm right-handed and it was stick shift, so I had to learn to shift with my left and everything, man.
Double damage, bro.
It was pretty crazy.
He was a special type of cat, bro. Special, man. That was legit. We also joined today, as always, by the savage himself, Mr. Billy, a.k.a. the makeup guy, a.k.a. Get You Right.
Yeah, my first car was a Ford Aerostar minivan. So, and it was like, if all my friends were in the car, there's a certain hill in my town I couldn't go up.
He had
but y'all was rolling deep in it, though.
Yeah, bro. Dog, so I just we got to get a meme of Billy, old school pictures of Billy, bro, in the minivan,
with
bro.
57 people in a minivan.
Yeah, and we didn't make it like the cover, like Kendrick Lamar's cover, bro, with the little Astro man.
Yeah.
That should be the picture for the next podcast. So.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
It's like an album cover. Per podcast, we gotta have an album cover. We gotta start.
I like that. That would be good, bro. It's based on the topic of the day, man.
Sir.
So, what's up with you, Billy?
Nothing much. Glad to be here, guys.
Oh yeah, Billy's over here doing some. Billy doing some behind the scenes.
AJ always laughs at my intros. Whatever I say, he's like, "What an idiot."
He just be so chipper. Nothing much, guys.
I'm sorry for all the joy I have. Okay?
Oh my God.
I look forward to hearing from you, Billy. You brighten my day, brother.
Oh man. Hey, real quick though. Hey, Billy, can we turn the AC on, bro? Because I'm starting to heat up real quick.
Y'all sweating?
Yeah, I'm starting to sweat, bro. But as we do that, as Bill turns on the AC, huh?
That's some joggers you got on.
Hey man, don't hate on my job, bro. I literally.
Hey, he jumped out the car. I was like, okay, cool, man. I'm overdressed.
Yeah, I was about to say he overdressed. You got jeans and t-shirt. Hey, Ryan's ankles are cold, right?
Hey, I pulled out the fresh J's. I was like, man, every time I see him on podcast, he got them J's on. I'm not gonna let him outdo me.
Sandals today.
I was like, oh man, I should just brought my Jesus
bro,
sandals.
I brought out the Toby Nwigwe slides, bro. Shoot. I was like, man, episode 1 and 2, I try to be proper, bro, like I'm dating a new girl and stuff like that. Yeah, once I got to know her, bro, I would show up in sweats, bro. So that's how
now you pick your nose and walk around a holy drawer. Yeah.
Oh, man, I literally, so y'all got to bear with me, man. I work swing shifts. So I work 2 p.m. to midnight. And so I get home around 12:30, bro. And we always film on Monday. So I was like, man, I just be rolling out of bed, literally, bro. I brush my teeth, wash my face, and be out the door, dog. I was like,
kudos to you, man. Definitely kudos to you, because I'll be here sounding like a morning radio show host. Yeah, what's up, man? How y'all doing?
Oh man, so what's new, man? What's the latest, man? What's the current events out there?
It's really hard for me to say I can't call it. I just want my respect and my kudos, because as soon as you said that, my immediately thought was, man, I can't call it. I'm just out here living, brother.
Oh man,
no,
you guys still on lockdown?
What's that?
You guys still on lockdown in Columbus?
Bro, I don't know, man. Like we're opening bars, but then people are calling the cops on the bars, and there's a lot going on right now, man. I'm just living my life. We got little man like one of the little bounty things, like you put him in like he like bounces up and down.
Yeah.
So that's my new excitement, man. I'm having more fun than he is. I'm playing with all the buttons.
You treat it like it's a sport. Since we don't got no sports, bro, you just treat it like it's a sport. Like, oh,
that's
in the blue corner.
That's it. Actually, I had to get one because I seen Billy's son powerlifting his around the house, and I was like, man, I need my boy to look like that. Like,
yeah, he has this walker, and he literally just picks it up and walks around with it now. So he doesn't need it anymore.
I don't need no walker.
Hey, I watched that video probably 10 times and was like stomach laughing, like holding my stomach laughing. I was like, man, he is a little man, just powerlifting this little walker around.
Did you put that on Instagram or you sent that to a group text?
Oh, it was my Instagram story.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't see that one.
Oh, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. He's definitely a little Billy, just full of muscle
I'm already knowing. Man, so we just got back from AZ on, when was it? Shoot. What's the day? Monday? We got back on Saturday. So, bro, it's funny. You go to AZ, you would never even know that they had COVID-19 out there, bro. like literally everything was open. Like the malls were open, the hotel, like we were like they had a water park, so we took the kids to the water park and stuff
you could drive down there.
Oh yeah, we're only like 4 hours away.
You know, I'm trying to figure out this whole geography.
I still so Tony, bro, true story. AJ first came out to Cali like last year or whatever, and he was like, "Hey, bro," he was like, "Man, y'all got mountains out here." I was like, "Yeah, bro, like they right there."
Hey, you know what? I went out to Columbus for the Arnold. I'm not gonna lie, man. As soon as I touched down on, I think they call it the north side or something like that. As soon as I got there, I was like, man, I feel like I'm in 8 Mile, man. Like it's straight up Eminem style.
Really?
Over here. Yeah.
I mean, Columbus got some. Yeah, Columbus has some areas where you need that thing on your hip to walk around.
Man. Yeah.
So I was tripping out when he was like, "Y'all got mountains." I was like, "Yeah, bro. Of course we got mountains out here. Like, what do you expect? Like, this is Earth.
This is Earth."
Like, not realizing though, like where he's from, they don't have mountains. So like, because I always forget. Like, and I used to even tell my wife as we're driving back from AZ, I'm thinking like, you know, we're driving west. So like when people drive west and reach Cali, like. Cali is a coastal state, so it's like you can't go any further than Cali. But every time we drive like to Arizona or something like that, I forget like if we keep driving, we could literally just drive across country. In my mind, I'm thinking like we're driving to like a coastal state. So I was tripping out on that. You know what I mean? So it just reminded me.
Did I ever tell you the story like why I said that to you? Did I ever tell you why I said that?
Nah.
So I have a buddy who is like a multimillionaire. Like he has so much money, he doesn't know what to do with it. And at the time,
it looks like we got our first podcast sponsor, but go ahead.
But at the time he lived in Chicago, like one of the sky rises, right? So I had to be 18, 19 maybe, never been out of the state like on my own, right? So I get like this bonus because I did something at work, and I call him up because he's like a good friend / mentor of mine. I'm like, hey, I'm driving to Chicago. So I think I was, actually, no, let me think. I was like 20, 21, now that I think about it. So he's like, all right. So I plug it in my GPS. I drive out to Chicago. I pull up to the sky rise, and it's one of the big boys, right? Like downtown Chicago. So I pull up, and there's like a butler waiting on me. He's like, Mr. Johnson? And I'm like, I about pulled my gun on him. I'm like, hey, bring it in my car, man. So he's like, can I take your bags? I'm like, man, this is crazy. So I'm like already soaking in this lifestyle. I'm in Chicago. There's skyscrapers everywhere. There's a butler carrying my backpack because that's all I took because I was a kid at the time.
Did you bring your washcloth?
Of course I brought a washcloth, man. That's how you gonna get clean. So we go to the 36th floor, and I think there was like 45 floors on there, right? So we go up, the door is open. You could go right and there was a door, and you could go left and there was a door. So there were only 2 condos on this whole floor, meaning you own half the condo, that side, right? At least that floor. So I get out, I walk in, glass walls, bro. Floor to ceiling glass walls overlook the entire downtown Chicago skyline. So I'm sitting there and I'm in awe because I've never seen anything like this. I'm like, this is dope. And he just living his life. Like he's like, I'm getting some orange juice over here. I'm cooking some eggs. And I'm watching him and I'm looking at the skyline and I'm watching him. I'm looking at the skyline. I'm like, hey, I'm like, stop. And he stops for a minute. I'm like, man, when's the last time you looked out your windows? And he was like, Well, I keep them closed half the time because the sun comes in and it makes it really hot inside. And I'm like, how much money did you spend on this view? And he told me, and I'm like, and when's the last time you used it? And he actually sat down and was like, you know what, you're right. Like, every now and then we have to take a step back and soak in the beauty of life. And, you know, he just walked by that view every single day that people would kill for. So when I went out to Cali and I seen the mountains, I was like, man, I bet you ain't never stopped and looked at them bad boys.
So you was trying to make me feel guilty because I ain't taking in the aura of our own mountains.
Earth.
Hey.
Earth. But
Earth.
Hey, what'd you do the weekend after I left, though?
Well, look at the mountains.
You took the family up to the mountains.
Oh, we did take the family. You're right. We did take the family
Hey,
to the mountains.
hey, you know what? I'm gonna have to just end this podcast, man. I'm gonna have to take off. I'm gonna go to the mountains. You
Yeah,
got me
you gotta
thinking
go.
right now, man.
Yeah.
Your mountains is important. They calling me right now.
Yeah,
They
you
call
gotta-
me right now.
You gotta soak it in. I ain't got no mountains to look at. Just soak it in for me at least.
That's true. That's true,
Hey,
man.
well, I'll take a picture of a mountain for you. I'll send it to you,
Oh,
bro. There you go.
You know?
Oh man, so hey man, I don't like just like last episode. I want to get into the story of Tony, because again, me and AJ and Billy can ramble forever, bro. So, but this is about you, and the reason I brought Tony on here. So I told you we were gonna do a part 1 and part 2. The reason we did part 1 is because again, I wanted to talk about a guy that was not a fan of police, who ended up becoming a police officer. This is a little bit of a different story. Tony did not become a police officer. He's not a cop. Still one of my really best friends. And but his story is a lot different. It's a lot more edgier, and he's had a lot more different interactions. He has reasons why not to like the police. And so just in some of those stories, leave out the agency.
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely will.
Just leave out the
Definitely
agency because I want to keep our podcast up and running. My chief about to be like,
Yeah,
Ryan, can you
yeah.
come to my office? So,
Yeah.
but anyways, with that being said, man, Tony, just tell us a brief, who you are, where you come from. I know you're from Rialto, or if our audience doesn't know, he's from Rialto. Obviously, he grew up in the same place as I did. So tell us a little bit about yourself, bro.
All right. Well, my name is Anthony Madrano. Grew up in Rialto, was raised my whole life in there. So I come from a family of 3 brothers. Really close family, parents, been living together. They've known each other since 24. My father passed away 2 years ago, and they've been together. They're 74 now. So like they've been together their whole life. So I grew up in that lifestyle of, both parents, being successful, good life. Growing up, dad was amazing. Mother was amazing, but I kind of took a little turn, a little turn here and there. So, but yeah, we'll get deeper into that. But that's pretty much. Now I'm a gym owner. Background is really, I see you. I was peeping him guns.
You don't see nothing, bro. That's just a small shirt, bro.
He was flexing. He was flexing from the beginning.
that's
Every
his
chance
genius.
he had. Every chance he had. You didn't see him. He was like, yeah, I went to the mountains, and there was this mountain.
He got his son's shirt on, bro. He got his son's shirt on.
Yeah, but yeah, grew up in a mechanic shop. Wrenched all my life, and then ventured off into different little things, and then like I said, became a gym owner. Wasn't really something I ever thought about having, but it just fell in my lap. God put me in that path, and that's where I'm at right now. So
Excellent. So, as I've known Tony, the funny thing about bringing your friends on is like, your boys since like day one. I saw a meme the other day. It talks about, actually, I think you put it up, where it talks about, the ones you struggle with, the ones you eat with, something like that. But the whole concept was, man, like, there's a lot of guys that we struggle with, and now we're all grown adults and stuff like that. But going back, let's go back in time and let's start talking about when you started taking those left turns, because,
okay,
I know. So, just a little bit of background about our relationship. Tony was always in our relationship, but I never really had a close relationship with Tony growing up. He was really good friends with one of my other best friends. And so I always knew Tony as the dude that drove all the cars, the freaking, I'm like, golly, man, like I'm trying to get a car. I never forget my first car that my dad bought me was a Ford Volkswagen Focus thing looking like? Or
A
not
Ford Volkswagen.
Not,
Yeah,
it was a
he had
station wagon.
he had the first generation hybrid.
Yeah,
that's
He was-
that
he was-
exclusive joint.
No, it was a Ford station wagon, whatever it was called, like the Ford Focus station wagon. I never ended up driving it, but my dad was like, "Hey, I got you a car." Somebody was selling the car, and like, God bless her, I love her to death. There was an old librarian at our school because my dad worked at the school, and so she was an old librarian. I loved her to death, but man, they smoked like oh, it was ridiculous. So when I got in that car, bro, it just smelled like ashtrays, bro. I was like, Dad, there's no way I'm
Yeah.
driving this car.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm driving this car.
Yeah.
So I see Tony pull up, bro, in his right hand drive freaking Honda, and I'm like, and you know, back then that's when Rice Rockets was a thing,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah.
Fast and the Furious just came out.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, Tony Luck, he just came from the scene of Fast and the Furious,
Yeah.
bro. Like, how can I
Whip
know? So, you know what I mean? So anyway, so tell us about, you know, in your
The
life
left
where,
turns.
yeah, that left
Uh-huh.
turn.
Okay. So, like I said, I grew up in Rialto, and I don't know, you know, I was just always the smaller dude, the skinny dude, so I always try to fit in, you know, as a young age, I was trying to fit in. I was trying to, you know, be one of the boys, be the tough guy, you know? So, I started lashing out, man. I started, got into boxing, starting to learn boxing, but not really learning the art of it, but just using it to my advantage, you know. Started becoming the bully, you know, my whole mindset started to change because I wanted to fit in so bad with these people that I was hanging around with and grew up with, you know. So I started doing stuff like that, started, you know, getting involved in gangs and being around people that were gang members and stuff. And then that kind of just like took off. And then, you know, that lifestyle took off and I just ran with it because at that moment and at that age, I was like, man, like I'm that cool kid, you know, I'm becoming this person that I see everybody respecting. So that started implementing the fact that I had to have people fear me. So that's where boxing came into place, you know, being the bully and stuff like that. So I felt like if they fear me, they respect me. So I started doing more things. And, you know, with that, it's just abusing it all the way, you know?
Got you. Now, AJ, did you experience anything like similar growing up? Because I know you kind of grew up in like a little bit more of a rougher situation because we've heard your story before. But did you kind of grow up with some of those same complexes as well, or was it a little different?
I think mine was more so like I just didn't have like any sense of like family or like sense of like bond with anybody. So, you know, I made that bond with my friends who lived in the area I grew up in, who just happened to be in a gang. So I think that's more so like how I ended up getting like tied in with that. But you know, fear is a drug, and Tony, I'm sure you can contest to that. When you first get that taste, at least at that young age, of like somebody truly fearing you, man, it is like truly a drug, and you crave more and more of it. So I wouldn't say I got into it because of that, but I definitely stayed into that lifestyle and dove deeper into it because of that.
Yeah, and the reason, and something that's interesting, we have 4 guys here, you know, and what's interesting is every single one of us grew up differently, but yet we've arrived almost at the same location.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to get at is that no matter how you grow up, where you grow up, you can still arrive at the same destination.
For sure.
As a person that has a complete opposite, you know, upbringing. And so, you know, the purpose of this podcast is for today, at least, is one, talking about obviously your experience with police or negative experience with police, but also talking about how you can still get back on that path despite the adversity you had. So that being said, Tony, when did you start having like, you know, interactions with law enforcement? Because I'm sure, you know, running with that crowd, being involved, you know, either directly or indirectly with gangs or whatever it is, I'm sure at some point in time you started having some interactions with law enforcement.
Yeah, man, as young as like 15, 16, it started to get really heavy by the time I was like 18, 19, and so forth. You know, it started to get real heavy with that. My first run with the law was, you know, just running into a liquor store and just, you know, stealing alcohol just because some of our friends wanted to, you know, drink and stuff like that. And what's so funny is that as I got older, I was like, before like I was like maybe like 17, 18, you know, there was a time where we did like a beer run, and everything. And we got back, and I was like, man, like, why'd I do that? Like, I could have just asked somebody to do it because I have, money in my pocket, but once again, I wanted to be that cool kid that did that, and wanted to fit in and wanted to be respected. And I had it all wrong, man,
So when you start having these interactions with the law, were they actual negative interactions with them, or were they interactions with the law that in your mind you made them negative because it kind of goes into that whole mantra like, hey man, we get hit up by police, we already don't like police, so was there any accountability? Because now as an adult, you've actually had some legitimate bad interactions with law enforcement. Yeah. So what I'm getting at is I want to hear about the ones that were not necessarily negative interactions with law enforcement, but in your mind they were kind of negative just because you didn't like police, maybe, as opposed to the ones that are truly negative that, as law enforcement officers, we could have did that one better. Yeah, well,
for me, growing up and getting the interaction with law enforcement at a young age, it was more of like, F the popo. We don't talk to a popo. We don't, as soon as you see him, you get, you don't get caught. If you get caught, you're on your own. There's nothing going on. So there was times where, some of us would get caught and, or it would be just me. And, my whole attitude was just like, don't talk to me, get the F away from me. Like, stay away. Like, I'm not trying to talk to you. I even got to a point where I was just like, I don't need to talk to you. Bring my lawyer. You know what I mean? I'm under 18. I'm over here acting like I got like some big time lawyer to bring my lawyer.
Like
bring my lawyer.
Johnny Cochran. Get Johnny
Call
Cochran.
him up.
Call him up.
Right
Speed
now.
dial.
Right now. So it was on my end, but it was just because at that age, I had it in my head thinking like, this is how you have to handle situations with the police because they are the enemy. You know what I'm saying? They're not out here to help us. They the enemy. They out here just to get us. They just out here just to put us in jail and treat us like nothing, like we were nothing. We're not worth nothing at that age,
But it wasn't necessarily, that mindset didn't necessarily come from bad experiences with law enforcement. It was just one of those that was just kind of,
it's just the lifestyle, the lifestyle that people I grew up with,
And so the reason why that is so, I want to stay here for a second because when you talk about guys like Sean King, when you talk about guys like, what's the other guy, the DUI, the Mr. Checkpoint, guys like them, and not to badmouth them or anything because I don't know them personally and I don't know necessarily what their intentions are. But what I do see is that, and one of the most frustrating things for me as having a podcast, as trying to go out there and change the face of modern day policing, is you have to do it from a neutral standpoint. And what gets frustrating sometimes is you see people take these positions where they have either a far left mentality or a far right mentality. And what it does is it starts to steer people one direction, which that's not how we live life. You have to live life from a neutral perspective because every interaction you have with law enforcement is going to be different. And so when you get guys that all they do is put out stuff about negative police stuff, well, their fan base is going to start to develop that mantra, that mentality like, F the pigs, F the popo, I don't like the cops, really not even having a foundation of why they don't even like cops. Where you have some of the far right that's like, hey, police can do no wrong. And I even just posted a video where an officer lost his freaking mind. And, granted, the officer was having a bad day. I get it. We all have bad days. But it doesn't excuse his behavior, but yet I have people coming out saying like, oh man, I'm with the officer and this and that. Is like, there was no excuse for that behavior. And so when you have that far right mentality, how do you expect people to start develop a level of trust in law enforcement? And so I think what you talk about is very critical and key in this situation, because it's one of those, is like, your mentality was just developing because this is what that lifestyle you're living.
Exactly.
And granted, back in the day, we didn't have these social media platforms, so it wasn't, publicized as much as it is now. But think about now how it is now with people that have that same mentality, but now it's also fueled by social media and people that are fueling this propaganda. You know what I mean? So, I mean, AJ, am I right with that, or do you think that I'm kind of missing the boat with that?
No, you're absolutely right. And Tony, you said something that really stuck out to me at the end of the last story you shared. You said, it was just the people that I grew up with, and I immediately went back to me sharing my little snippet And, you know, that's what I said, you know, almost verbatim is, you know, I just went outside and I hung out with the people, you know, that I grew up with. These are the people in the area that I live. I just go outside and I you know, play, do whatever. But I feel like a lot of times in law enforcement, we as a whole, because I'll speak for law enforcement, I'll just put a blanket over all the officers out there. We tend to forget that this sometimes isn't a choice, and a lot of times we put it on that, right? So like, as a law enforcement officer, I could go out here and I could pull over a drunk driver, and I could say, it was your choice to get drunk, get behind the wheel of that car, and drive, and show no remorse, right? And I'm not saying that's what I would do, but I would say it would be easy for me to do that. But a lot of times in law enforcement, we automatically chalk up, you know, gang activity or, you know, certain acts that the youth lash out with as their choice, when it's not really. Like, we go outside, we play with our friends, those friends become our influencers. They join a gang, we join that gang because we want a sense of family or a sense of bond, and then it kind of goes from there. So my question to you, Tony, is if you could say something to every police officer out there, say every police officer right now would hear your message, what would it be as far as interacting with misled youth?
Honestly, as if I could go back and be that 15-year-old, I think the approach that would really stand out to me from a police officer is if he kind of like how at that age I looked at my friends, like, or the older peers, like the big homie. You know what I mean? Like, I looked at the big homie, like, for guidance to tell me where to go, how to act, and how I should, you know, react to people.
Right.
So I think if the police officer at that time could have looked at me, like, and just talked to me like, hey, look, man, like, I know what you're doing. Like, I deal with this on a daily. Look, I'm not here to mess up your record. I'm not here to mess you up. But look, if you continue to do this is going to lead you here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, look, I'm going to let you go on this one, but if I come around and I see you again, like, I'm going to have to ruin something in your life because of that, because of this, you know, because you're doing this is going to ruin it, and I'm going to have to act on that. I think if their approach was a little bit more like that, I think it would help out a lot of younger, you know, people, a lot of younger individuals. But I do understand that it's hard for a police officer to do that to a young man or a young woman when their mentality is like, no, like, F you, get away from me. I understand that. You know what I mean? So I understand both sides. Now that I'm an adult, I understand both sides. But for me, being that 15-year-old, I think if a police officer would have talked to me like that, or if he would have just, like, called me out on my BS and been like, look, man, like, you don't even look like you belong in this crowd.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean?
So it would be safe to say that if you had more positive police interactions growing up, that it would have made a lasting impact on your life.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. Like, definitely, dude. We had a certain police officer, and I'll leave his name out, but we had a certain police officer in the area that if as soon as we heard him, like, we had a code name for this dude, because as soon as we heard that name, we ran, because he wasn't there to help you out or to tell you something. He was there to beat your A.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he was there to, like, you know, at a young age, like, I seen him run up on somebody and busting in these apartments, in these project apartments I used to hang out in, and grab him from the top tier and just launch him out through the front door, you know? And I'm just like, whoa, you know, like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So but yeah, man.
I just want everyone listening or watching this podcast to think about that for a second, especially those who are in law enforcement or considering going into law enforcement. Is, you know, we take an oath to uphold the Constitution, to uphold our state laws, our city laws, our village ordinance, whatever. But a lot of times we forget our ultimate goal in taking this job, which a lot of times when you join, it's like, I want to help people. I want to help the community. And we go out there and we automatically think that we can arrest our way out of the problem, which is fine, right? Like, I get that mindset. Like, we have to go out here, we have to enforce laws, we have to to set an example and to set a bar. You know, if you cross this line, you're going to jail. If you sell drugs, you're going to jail. You break in houses, you do X, Y, and Z. Like, I get that, but we forget.
Straight to jail.
Yeah, all of that, right? But we tend to forget the other side of things, and that's leaving a lasting impression. So if you truly want to go out here in the inner city and make an impact and be that change, you're hearing it from the mouth of experience right now. A positive police interaction has power. And despite if that youth or that grown man or grown woman is saying, F the police, get off me, don't touch me, doing whatever, you have to find it within yourself to take a step back, remind yourself, like, you know what? Maybe this person hasn't had a chance yet. Maybe all this person needs is a positive police interaction that can forever shape this person's life. And you got to swallow your pride, and you got to go in there, chin high, and go, you know what? Look, you don't know me, I don't know you. So let's get past the F the police, because this is AJ speaking. This is put your name in there, right? And meet them at their level, because you never know the impact you may have. And I'm sorry if I'm taking over the podcast right now, but you know, I'm extremely passionate about this because I am here today because somebody did that. I am here today because somebody took a step back and said, you know what? I don't see a thug. I don't see a gangbanger. I don't see a drug abuser. I don't see whatever, right? Like, I see a human being, and I'm going to meet him at his level. I'm going to encourage him, and I'm going to give him a positive police interaction. And because he took the time out of his day to do that, I am where I am. And my man Tony is saying that, right? Like, when he was growing up, he flat out said, if he would have had a positive police interaction, who knows where he would have been. And thank God, you know, he turned out the way he is today, but you never know. You know, this could have took a turn. We had our man Jorge on the podcast, and he talked about gang life and where gang life got him. He was shot in front of a courthouse from gang life. Imagine if a police officer would have came into his life prior to that and been that positive influence. And I already know where people are going to go with this. People are automatically going to go, well, it's not our job. Why does it always have to be the police? Why not? Stop complaining about, people say F the police every time I put this uniform on. We have no respect in the community I work. And go out there and be the change. Be the reason why people do respect the police. Listen, I'm gonna go all day. Let me stop it.
No, I love it. I love it.
It's true.
I love
it's
it.
Facts,
AJ
man.
in church right now.
It's facts.
Take a
it's
second,
facts.
but that's it. Like, there are so many police officers out there who complain about the job. You know, this job sucks. People hate us. People shoot at us. People say F the police. People flip us off when we drive their cars. Listen, I'll be flat out, and you can ask anybody in the area I work or any police officer who has worked with me. I will spend all day talking to somebody who does not like the police. You know why? Because the moment I change their mind, they're going to go out and change so many more people's minds, because they're automatically going to go, well, hold on. Such and such really hated the police, but now he kicking in with Officer AJ. What's that about? And then what's even crazier is people are automatically going to go, well, Officer AJ's the cool cop. And instead of a police officer being upset that somebody's saying that, you need to take a step back and go, hey, it's a step in the right direction. Because let me tell you what Officer AJ is going to do then is, when I get that trust, I'm going to go, hey, look, I know you think I'm the cool cop. Let me introduce you to my man Jones I work with every day. And then I'm going to go, let me introduce you to my man Ryan out in Cali, right? And then before you know it, this person who hated the police is going to have friends who are police officers from all over the country. So I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to breathe. But hear me out when I say this. Stop complaining about your job. Stop saying I don't have time to do it, because listen, I work in an area where we are busy, one of the busiest precincts in a major city. I have time to do it. You have time to do it. Stop complaining about people not liking the police if you're not doing anything for people to like the police. I'll pass the mic.
You know, AJ, you said some real stuff right now, man. Like, right now when you said, you know, that kid can be that, or that kid or that man can be that person that has police officers that are their friends in all over places, and I'm that person, you know. All of my friends, all of my family, like, they're all in law enforcement. You know what I mean? I didn't take that route because, you know, God wanted me to go through some other things, you know, so then I could be here and tell my story. And that's how it is, man. You know, I went out to Columbus. I reached out to you. I was like, yo, like, I'm about to touch down here, man. You're gonna be at the Arnold, like, come down, you know. And given to the COVID thing, you know, we couldn't meet, but I'm that guy that you just described. You know what I mean?
Well, what's funny in all this, so I went to one of my mentors had his birthday party. They did a drive-by birthday party at his house the other day. And so we went and stopped, and like as I'm there, I see a lot of the young cats that I coached growing up. And what's funny is these cats are way bigger than us. We had this great debate of whose football team was better. Anyways, as we're there, though, these cats are super big. One of them just got picked up by Carolina Panthers. Another one, three of them play for UCLA. So
Nice.
They're very, very established. But what's funny is they were like, they know me as Coach Tillman, not even realize. I mean, and they know I'm a cop because when I stopped coaching them is because I left for the academy. But they still know me as Coach Tillman. So I start sharing them stories. I start talking about, Uncle Guns, who is like, we all know Bryce Mullins. He plays with, or he works with me now. And so they're like, man, like I can see them just like in their eyes, just getting this vision, like, man, like you sound like you got a cool job, a dope job. I'm like, man, it's super dope. Like, like you wouldn't even realize how cool it is.
Yeah.
Only because you're being distracted by these guys like Sean King and all these other people like Police the Police. And it's like, that's what makes me frustrated is because you have all these people painting this false narrative, not necessarily, and some of the stuff may not necessarily be false, but when that's all you stand by, like it's hard to get a grasp of what our job really is because you just been peg-told to just think that they're all like this. So I want to build on this foundation because we've established a good foundation for this conversation. Billy, when you grew up, like, you didn't really have any adversity really growing up, right?
No.
And the reason I'm building on this, so Billy never had any adversity. You pretty much grew up in a good home, 2 parents, everything like that, right?
Yep.
So you take somebody like Billy, and let's say you make Billy a police officer. So Billy, becomes a police officer. He goes out there, he's doing his job, but throughout Billy's life, he's never really had faced any adversity. But then you take somebody like Tony, and Tony, I want to start moving and transitioning to the adversity that you've gone through. Because Tony recently put out a video which, man, I applaud you, bro, not only as your friend, but as a brother in Christ, because I know the amount of courage it took to basically share with the world your testimony.
Yeah.
Because you suffered from stuff like alcoholism, right?
Yeah.
And there was certain trauma that happened that made you an alcoholic.
Yeah.
So you take somebody like Billy, who really hasn't experienced any adversity, you put him, give him a badge, and now he goes out there and deals with people like Tony, who have experienced a certain level of trauma. So AJ said something earlier that, is very easy, and a lot of officers have this mentality like it's his own fault. He's the one that decided to put the bottle up and start to drink. That's his own fault. Like that, oh well. And like the sad thing about that mentality is like when we have this, hey man, he should have never decided to drink, or that's his own fault that he wanted to use drugs. They're not taking into account the trauma that caused them to do it. And I never forget, we had my brother on this episode on the podcast a long time ago, which was Tam. And Tam was like, man, if officers would just lead with a little bit more empathy, it would help a lot. And so, Tony, I want you to talk about the trauma that you've experienced in your life, if you don't mind.
No, definitely.
Because there's real value in it because you went through alcoholism, but it wasn't because you just picked a bottle up and said, I want to start drinking.
No, it wasn't.
There was trauma behind that. So
Definitely.
tell us about that in your life and that experience and what dark place that you were in.
Okay. So I started drinking at the age of 14. I'd say by the age of like 17, I was like a full-blown alcoholic already. But what caused me to start drinking was that my niece passed away. She actually drowned in our home, in a home that I grew up with, in a home that I grew up where both my parents, perfect family, everything was perfect. And then my niece dies, and my niece was my sister, we're only a couple of years apart, and they were always with me. And, we're out for Easter one day. I sat them down, I went to go take a shower, and then next thing you know, I'm hearing my mom, my dad, everybody just yelling, come out the shower, and my mom's performing CPR. At that point, I blamed myself. I was like, man, like she was my responsibility. I was supposed to be taking care of her. I wanted to go take a shower. So I started drinking, got really heavy into drinking, and then that led to drinking and driving, and then just running amok through the streets, not really giving a care, being rebellious, just doing things just out of anger. But I started, accumulating DUIs, and I say accumulating because it was more than one. I was a repeated offender. So I started drinking. That led me to getting incarcerated because of having too many DUIs. Getting out, doing stupid stuff, getting more in trouble, and it just became repetitive. Speeded up a little bit more. In 2012, my son passed away. So my son passed away. That ended my whole world, at that point. And I was just like, F this, forget this, even turned my back on God. And it was like, I was mad. I was like, why did you do this?
And was that sudden, Tony, when your son passed away?
In 2012. My 2012.
It just sudden. It was like none of.
Yeah, it was a perfect pregnancy. Perfect pregnancy, nothing wrong. Everything was perfect, the baby came, and next thing you know, I'm standing in front of a doctor and it's telling me that I have to make the biggest decision of my whole life. Either at that point I'd be selfish and keep my son on these machines, or I just do what's right and let him go peacefully with God. So when I did that like crushed me, man. That destroyed everything, because we're all parents in this room, and we all understand what it is to be a father. We understand that we are our kid's superhero. We are invincible. We're the man that can do anything. And at that moment, I couldn't be that Superman. I couldn't be that healer. I couldn't be the man that he wanted me to be. You know what I'm saying? So that destroyed me. All that weight on me, throughout my whole life, I've dealt with death. People come in my life and then they're gone. People come in my life and then they're gone. And especially living the lifestyle of living on the streets and being involved in stupid stuff is like you're going. It's like it becomes normal to go to your homies, Passover like every other month. Every other month you run into your boy like, oh, son such got shot, man. He passed away, dude.
And we experienced tragedy together when Navarre passed away.
Exactly.
And Navarre was one of our good buddies that I had known Navarre since we were, in elementary school. And Navarre got shot right in front of his house, 5 times.
Yeah.
And Navarre had a baby on the way when it happened. And so I can relate and resonate with what Tony's talking about, because I would experience that death at an early age. I remember my buddy Lil P died in a car accident going to Mexico, and just over and over again. When I went to college, it didn't stop. Like when I went to college, I had my buddy Mo Hill pass away in a car accident. Robert Travers, passed away from overdose. David Peoples, Robert Lawrence. I can go down the list, of people that have passed away in my life. And so the reason I bring that up is because this is trauma. And so as officers, sometimes we forget that we're dealing with people that have suffered trauma and are going through situations in their life because of that trauma, whether it be drug addiction, alcoholism, whatever it may be. And because of that, it's causing them to act out the way they're acting, not to justify their behavior, but that's what's causing them to do that.
And to touch on that, in the direction that we're going, when my son passed away, I felt like life was over. Like I was just like, I was being selfish because I have other kids, but at that time I was just like, man, forget this. Like I couldn't even save this son. Like how am I gonna save the other kids? You know what I'm saying? So I would get drunk and purposely get in a car so then I can get pulled over and I could find that cop that just wanted to just shoot somebody. Wow. Because I wanted that to happen, because I just was like, I'm done. You know what I mean? Like I don't need this anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like I need this pain to go away, and this was the only way. You know what's crazy is so put that. So you take you're a person that deals with that had trauma. You know what I mean? So as officers, one of the things that the other side forgets is that officers are dealing with trauma every single day, but yet it's almost like a trauma that goes covered because we never really talk about things like this. And so officers experience this level of trauma, they start suffering for alcoholism, all this other stuff,
And then you see officers go off on somebody, or you see them do something that they shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
But it's all because of the trauma that they've also been going through, but it's unchecked.
Yeah.
And so that's why, when we going back to the beginning of this conversation, when we talk about having a neutral platform or coming from a neutral place, we all have to realize that we're in this together. And just because I'm an officer, it doesn't relieve me from experiencing a level of trauma that's going to take a certain effect in my life. And the same thing for you. And AJ, I see you write notes and shaking your head. I mean, what are some of your thoughts on, how officers deal with trauma, whether it be we're contacting somebody that's a drug addict, alcoholic or whatever, and we just lash out on them, or it's the officer's own personal trauma and they lash out on somebody that they shouldn't lash out on?
I'm a huge advocate of having outlets, positive outlets, right? So the gym, my man Tony owns a gym. Go get a membership there. Okay.
Yes. Threshold.
Yeah. Your religious life, whatever that may look like. I know what mine is, and I know what Ryan and Tony's are as well. Family, friends, support systems. But more so just knowing what trauma is and what it looks like, and that it may not affect you now, but a year down the road, 2 years down the road, it may creep up and that weight may get too heavy to bear. But something I want to touch on, just because, man, I'm writing these notes, man. And Tony, I really appreciate you sharing like everything you are sharing right now, because a lot of people need to hear this, and a lot of people who listen to this podcast and watch this podcast are law enforcement officers, or people considering going into the field. And I feel like it's important for them to hear this, because this may be a lifestyle that's foreign to them, but it may be a lifestyle that they have to deal with every single day going into this field. So I would much rather have them hear it here and be mentally prepared to deal with it, than just to be blindsided by it and then end up on the news because they didn't know how to interact with people who deal with trauma like this. So with that said, something that I have seen in my career, I've been on 7-8 years now, the department I'm at, 2 years prior. So, we'll just say 10 years of law enforcement experience, is there tends to be a mentality that police officers form, especially when they work the inner city. If you talk to a police officer that works the inner city 5 to 8 years, there tends to be a mentality of, hey, I worked the inner city. I worked the inner city my entire career. Like, there ain't nothing you can't tell me. There ain't nothing you can't show me. And it's like a prideful thing, which is cool. But something I don't want you to forget is there are people who live in that area that you work every single day that don't walk around with that mentality. So the trauma that you witness during your job is horrible. And the trauma you will experience during your job is horrible. You need outlets. You need a physical outlet. You need a religious outlet. You need a support group to get through all of that. But don't forget, the trauma that you just experienced is someone else's trauma as well, right? Like, if you showed up to a dead body call and it's a gruesome scene and you're seeing that, don't forget that that's somebody's family, and somebody probably seen their loved one like that before they called the police for you to respond. So deal with what you got to deal with, right? As a law enforcement officer, deal with what you got to deal with. Make sure you're right and you're mentally strong enough to go back in the game. Make sure you use your outlets properly. Make sure you're prayed up and you're ready, right? Go back in your job. But when you go back onto the streets, don't forget that there's somebody else who dealt with that trauma, and maybe they don't have the outlets, right? I can sit here and I can talk about have a physical outlet. Maybe somebody can't afford a gym membership. Maybe someone's never been properly shown how to work out or how to utilize those physical outlets. Maybe somebody has never been given a Bible, right? Like, maybe somebody doesn't have a spiritual leader in their life that could guide them in the right direction to have that outlet. Maybe somebody doesn't have a support group, because we're hearing it, right? People grow up in the inner city and their mom works 3 jobs. So the mom is out of the picture. The father's out of the picture. What else support group are they going to have except gang life or criminals who live in the same area? And something else you said is you said the cop that just wanted to shoot someone. I want everybody to stop for a second and think about what Tony just said. He said, I was going out looking for the cop that just wanted to shoot somebody, and how powerful of a statement that is. We turn on the TV and what do we see? cop beating people, cops shooting people, cops. The video you just did a breakdown on, Ryan, where the trooper lost his mind, right? Lost his mind, going off, cussing. And I'm not going to sit here and say I wasn't laughing during half of the video like, yo, this dude is tripping, right?
Yeah.
But then, so I'm watching it with my wife. And because my wife overheard it, she's like, "What?" She's like, "Is that real?"
What are you listening
I'm like,
to?
"Yeah, come here." And then I restarted it, and I'm still laughing at first, like, this is crazy. But then I had to take a second, about halfway through, and go, I can't imagine how terrifying that had to be for that person in the car.
Yeah.
Right? Because think about that, right? Tony just said the cop that just wanted to shoot somebody, which is the mentality of a lot of people, and you can't blame them, right? There are cops out there who just want to shoot somebody. That's the mentality, right? So say having that mentality and being in that situation where that trooper's losing his mind, you're like, I'm about to die. I am about to die. Like, what can I do to protect myself, right? So we have to keep that in mind. I know I'm going off on a tangent right now.
Well, no, not
like
only
I'm
that. I mean,
extremely-
you bring up a good point, too, is like, think about how many suicide by cop situations we see. And so now you take somebody like Tony, who had that mentality already in his mind. He goes out there with the purpose of that. And then you have an officer that comes along who, in his mind, he's just doing another day-to-day patrol.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the two just happen to meet. And let's
They
just say the
collide.
officer's having a bad day. The two collide.
Yep.
And then we see a video that I end up doing a Tillman take on, because half the world is saying the cop was wrong, half the world is saying the guy was wrong, and nobody can meet in the middle, not even realizing that this was one of those unfortunate situations. No matter how we peel the onion back, it was going to end bad, because you had two people going through trauma and were having a bad day, and they just happen to collide, and it happens every single day.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And everything that we talk about has nothing to do with actually the root of the issue.
Yeah. And then like how you said in the beginning, then you have social media now that comes and interprets the wrong of it. You know what I mean? And doesn't really get behind Tony and his and what he was going out looking for.
Yeah.
So it just makes the whole situation just a really ugly situation.
Yep.
So let's talk about that, because you start transitioning to, my bad, AJ.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Yeah. So you start, obviously you go through life, and then you start turning a new leaf. You now, 2012 was, rock bottom moment, it almost sounds like.
Yeah.
And now you start to, at what point for you did you start putting the bottle down and then start having a new outlook on life?
6 months after my son passed away, I was actually sitting in a cell, and at that time I had a real big homie, and that big homie gave me a Bible, and he told me, bro, he goes like, when's your out date? I was like, I don't know, I'm fighting my case right now. But he was like, what's your case? And I told him, he was like, man, you going home. He goes, you know where I'm going? I'm going upstate. I'm waiting for the chain. I'm about to go do life. He goes,
Wow.
you have another chance, youngster. You need to get out there and do something. You really want your son's name to be really, really recognized? He goes, get out there and change your life.
Talk to him.
And that's where Ethan's journey comes into play for my IG handle. Because
wow, I never knew that.
I turned when I got out of prison, I turned my life around. I got on my knees and surrendered my life to Jesus, and I told my son that I will promise for the rest of my life I would never pick up a bottle again, and I was gonna let him live through my eyes. And the only way that I can do that is by me being sober, because a sober eyes can see everything clearly. You know what I'm saying? And see it for what it is. So that's where everything changed for me.
Wow, bro. So go ahead, AJ.
Man. Hey, I literally have goosebumps, man. I literally have goosebumps right now. You said a real big homie. And I need people to understand the difference. Like if you're a youngster, I don't care who you are, what age group, what sex, religion, any of that. He said a real big homie. And the reason he said a real big homie was immediately followed because he gave me a Bible. He gave me something tangible. He really wanted to help me out. There are so many times where people are the big homie. I'm going to give you a gun. I'm going to get you in the game. I'm going to show you how to chop it up. I'm going to show you how to cut it. I'm going to show you what cuts to hit. I'm going to show you how to talk to the police. I'm going to show you how to lawyer up. A real big homie gave me a Bible. And this man's life is forever change. Stop listening to these negative people out here who want you to believe that they're out here living the life. I'm telling you right now, all the cars that they drive, all the money that they got, all the fancy clothes on their back is being taken by the cops as soon as we kick in that door, and they not gonna have nothing. They're gonna be in a jail cell in an orange jumpsuit like everybody else. He said a real big homie gave him a Bible, something nobody could take away from him. And it forever changed his life. He don't got to worry about the police no more. He don't got to worry about the weight being too heavy. He don't got to worry about having other outlets because he has the outlet that he needs. Think about that.
I told Ryan a couple of years back, I was like, man, it's kind of crazy, man. Now, instead of running from the police, I'm hanging out with the police. Instead of sitting in the back of a police car, I sit in the front of police cars.
And think about that. And I want you to tell everybody, like, how much better does that feel?
Oh man, it's amazing. You know what I mean? I can go to sleep knowing that I can really go to sleep instead of worrying like, man, are they gonna bust through my door,
bro?
Like, do I gotta hide this? Do you know? Like,
listen,
I don't have to worry about none of that. And can't nobody come take what I've worked hard for no more. You know what I'm saying? Can't nobody come and repo my stuff. Can't nobody, tell, oh, we're about to seize this. Ain't nobody seizing nothing from me no more.
And the thing is this is the message as officers that we have to be sharing with people, because you got to realize we're not going to have, everybody from the inner city listen to this podcast.
Right.
But that means that you are now the messenger to go out there and say that there is life beyond the state that you're in.
Yep.
There, you do have a big homie. You do have a big brother, and that's me. And that's why we have to get out of this selfish mentality as officers sometimes and forget that it's not just about me. Yes, I've experienced trauma. Yes, there's things that I don't like to see, but there's somebody out there that's going through so much more than I'm going through. And so we do have to stop being selfish at times and just say, look, let me meet you where you're at. I was at so when I work, there's this little, y'all gonna laugh at me, but I go to this place called the Painted Dough. Yes, it's a donut shop, but I'm not getting donuts. I'm getting acai bowls, just so y'all know.
Oh, which are good.
Hey, yeah, I put AJ up on acai when he came out here. My man was like, "What's an acai bowl?"
He was like,
"Acai bowl, acai bowl." So, anyways, I get an acai bowl probably like 3 times a week, and as I'm getting them, yesterday I actually was talking to she's a new employee there. And she asked me, "Hey, did you work at Down Lugo? I got a bet going." I was like, "Yeah, I did." So I was like, "Okay, cool. So what's the bet about?" She's like, "Yo, my brother said that you didn't work there. You were just there and did that dance or whatever, and then you left." I was like, "No, I worked there." So anyways, I got to find out that she is the sister of a deep-rooted family in our city that has long criminal ties. Like, so much so I was just at their house last week doing some probation checks. And so one of their brothers, who's the youngest, he's only like 12 or 13. I remember when I first started in law enforcement, he was only like 6 or 7. My man had that beeper on his ankle, bro.
Wow.
Like, yeah, he from day one has been like going in and out of the system, and he's only getting progressively worse. And so we're having this conversation. So I got to talking to her, and I got to ask her, like, why do you think he is the way he is? And she was like, well, because my brothers weren't any better. And so growing up, that's all he really knew. So she was like, on one end, he's a freaking turd. But on another end, like, I really can't blame him because that's all he knew.
Yeah, that's all he knows.
And so one of the things that we have to do as officers is we have to realize is, like, we have to understand that some people that we deal with, this is all they know. And when they tell you F you, I had somebody call me the N-word yesterday. Straight up, with the ER on the end. This is real, like, just yesterday. And I could have got like that officer that I posted a video of and just went off. But I didn't, because I knew it wasn't necessarily a personal attack on me. My man that I was dealing with, his wife is locked up. I don't even know the whole backstory of but I know he's going through a lot of issues.
It was just a toxic situation.
It was just toxic. So I can choose to take that situation and get mad and offended that he called me the N-word, or I could just realize like, yeah, he may have made that gesture towards me, but it wasn't really directed towards me. And I think sometimes as officers, we get so caught up in thinking that the attack is directed at me personally, we're not realizing that it's just directed towards the situation, and I just happen to be in that situation. And I think if we have that mindset, say, you know, let me step back and realize like, hey, like they're going through some trauma, they're going through some adversity. I'm just here. I got to do my job. I got it. Like AJ always says, I got to be the popo. I got to do my job, but I'm not going to take those attacks personal. And I'm not going to lie. There are times where it gets hard. There are times where I've been ready to go off on somebody. There are times where I have gone off on somebody because I'm human. But what I'm saying is like I've always said it before, is we have to think about what I'm thinking about. And as officers, we don't have that luxury to make mistakes like that. Yes, we could make a mistake, and yes, we may be able to keep our job, but yet we are held to a higher standard. I say this all the time. We're held to a higher standard. So as officers, we do have to think about what we're thinking about. So, you know,
and it's crazy what you're saying about that. You know, like you can't really get mad at the situation or like how that person, you know, attacked you and said how they said the things that they said. It's like you didn't take it personal. You know what I'm saying? You kind of like, it was like, all right, cool. It is what it is. Let me move on. You know, and that's kind of like how it was when I got a falsely arrested, you know? So
tell me about that real quick, because I want to hear about that story, and I think it's good for the listeners to hear. Where are we at on time, Billy?
Hour 1.
Okay, cool. Let's do it.
Okay, so we're gonna fast forward already. Life has changed. You know, I'm living my purpose. You know, and you know, I'm driving back from picking up my daughter from school. So you know, we're driving normal routine, and I'm driving this the 7 Series BMW at that time, and you know, I had just got it from the auction. So I was driving, pulled up, and we're like a block away from her home, and I look in the rearview mirror and I'm like, he busted a U-turn. Okay. So I tell my daughter, I'm like, hey, look, we're gonna get pulled over. Just don't worry about nothing. I was like, let's put your backpack in the back, and let's, you know, when we get pulled over, I'm gonna roll down all the windows. Don't worry about it. Okay, Dad. You know, at that time, you know, my daughter's a teenager, so she knows what's going on. So we get pulled over, the officer comes out, roll down all the windows, and I'm looking in the side mirror and I'm like, hold up, why is his hand by the, you know, by his gun? Like, why is that? So as soon as I seen that, I put my hands on top of the steering wheel, because I'm like, I don't want him to think anything, you know. He's already gonna have this he already made this assumption of me, you know what I mean? Guy in a flashy car, tattoos, gold chain, something's not right, you know? So I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm there, comes up, and he immediately just says, can you get out the car? And I'm like, sure, I'll get out the car. Got out the car, said nothing. And he's like, where are you going? And I was like, I'm dropping my daughter off. You know, she just picked her up from school, dropping her off. I was like, I rolled down the window so then you can see her backpack's in the back. He was like, oh, I don't care about that. I was like, okay, all right. So we continue with the conversation, and he's like, whose car is this? I was like, it's my car, sir. And he was like, really? I was like, yeah, it's my car. He was like, why does it have paper plates on it? I was like, because I just bought it from the auction. I was like, my dealer plates are sitting in the trunk. He was like, well, why are they not on there? It doesn't do it no good. I was like, I understand. I was like, I'm sorry. He was like, don't be sorry. Okay, you know, all right. I'm trying to be respectful. You know what I mean? I'm trying to set the tone. Because I don't want to be that guy. This time, I'm not out there looking for the cop that's trying to shoot somebody. You know what I mean? I'm trying to get home. I got my daughter in the car. So we're going on. He calls for backup. And then he has me sitting on the sidewalk. He puts the cuffs on me, sitting down. And I'm like, man, like, I asked him, I was like, am I being arrested? And he was like, hold on. And I was like, okay, cool. You know, I'm just still sitting there. My daughter's looking around. She's like, what's going on and stuff like that. And then he comes back and he goes, all right, look, man. He goes, I'm going to let you make one phone call. I was like, why? He goes, you don't want your phone call? I was like, yeah, I do want my phone call, but I want to know why you're doing this phone call. He was like, you have a warrant out for your arrest. I chuckled. He was like, what's so funny? I was like, what's funny is that I discharged my pro number 6 years ago. I haven't been involved with any kind of law at all. I don't even have a traffic ticket, so I don't understand why I'm being arrested. He was like, yeah, you have a warrant for your arrest. I was like, that's impossible. He was like, so you're telling me I'm a liar? I was like, you know what, sir?
Golly.
I will make that phone call. I was like, I'll make that phone call. He was like, all right. And you have one chance. If they don't pick up, I'm taking you, and I'm gonna call the CPS to come and pick up the kid. And I was like, what? I was like, there's nothing going on. He was like, do you want your phone call? I was like, yeah. You know, I want my phone call. Got my phone call. Luckily, my brother answered on the first call. I was like, you know, this is the only person that I know that's gonna answer it right now. You know what I mean? That's one shot. So gave him a call, and I was like, hey man, I need you to come by. He was like, okay, where you at? I'm right here. All right, cool. Comes by, and then he goes, look, I'm not gonna impound your car, but I'm gonna let the person that's coming take the car with your daughter. He was like, and I'm gonna do you a favor. He goes, I'm not gonna put you in the back of my car until they drive away. I looked at him and I was like, thank you. You know what I mean? Like at this point, you already put this image in my daughter's head that I had worked for 6 years to take out of her head. You know what I mean? Like, I had told her that I was never, ever going back to jail. I had told her that her dad had got his life together. You know, she's my salvation child. She goes to a Christian private school that her mom and myself like bust our butts to put her in. You know, she pushes me to be on my faith and to believe in God, because she knows that God is real, and that's who made me believe in God, you know? And now, like, she sees this happening to her dad. So I'm like, man, all right, cool. So it gets better. They come pick up the car. My brother drives away. He gets me. He starts roughing me up, gets me in the car. He calls, instead of putting me in a patrol car and taking me personally, he calls a transit van to come get me. I'm like, all this for little old me? I don't even have a warrant. So he throws me in this transit car. The gentleman that was driving the transit van tells the officer, he goes, hey, he has money. Do you have the slip, you know, that you put everything in possession slip? And the guy goes, oh, he has money? Don't worry about it. Merry Christmas. And I'm like, what? And the gentleman goes, don't worry about it, man. He goes, I'll count it. So he counts the money, writes it down. He goes, does this sound about right? I was like, yeah, man, that sounds about right. He goes, all right, cool. So he puts it in there. We're driving. He was like, hey, man. He was like, I'm sorry. He goes, I don't know why they called me for you. He goes, but I still have to go pick up 2 more other parolees that I violated. And I was like, wow. So now I'm driving around the city
picking up other people. You know, so we finally get to the place where I was gonna be put at, and the gentleman goes. I asked the gentleman. I was like, hey man, I was like, can I ask you for a serious favor? He goes, yeah. I was like, look man, I was like, that was one of my stops to picking up my kid. I still have to make another 2 stops to pick up my other kids from school. Can I call their mom and let them know that I'm not gonna be there? He goes, all right, man. He goes, pull out your phone. You know, I pull out, get my phone. I'm like, here. He goes, all right, unlock it. He unlocks it. He was like, what's the number? I gave him the number. He dials it on my phone. He has it on speakerphone. I'm like, hey, look, da-da-da-da-da. She goes, okay. And then boom. And then he takes me in. He does me that solid. He takes me inside. They book me. I sit there all day, all night. Finally get site released. To come to find out, wasn't even my name on the ticket for getting site released. I was booked under somebody else. That warrant was for someone else. Wasn't even for me. It wasn't even me that was under that. I asked the lady that was releasing me. I was like, "Who is this?" He goes, "That's you." I was like, "No, it's not." "Oh, that's what that's the name that you were booked under." I was like, "Well, I've been wrongfully, incarcerated." They're like, "Oh, well, that's how it was." She didn't even have an explanation for me, to be honest with you. I got site released. They came pick me up. I swear for like a whole day I was just in denial that could have happened. That the system had failed. That this system was failing not only me but everybody else. And that started making me think and like, I wonder this and I wonder that. And I was like, you know what? Hold up. I'm not going to let the enemy get this one. The enemy's not going to get this one.
You know, I'm a Christian. I'm a believer. It is what it is. But hold up. Let me call somebody that I know that can guide me through this situation, not just as a Christian, but as a police officer. So I called my friend and I gave him a call and I let him know the situation. He was like, what you want me to do about it? And I was like, you know what? I don't think we should do anything about it. He was like, you sure? Yeah, I'm sure, man. It is what it is. I go back. So many people already right off the back when I mentioned the story to like, I think it was like 2 or 3 people that I like, you know, wanted to share the story with. They're like, oh man, you should sue them. You should do this and you should do that. And I was like, no. And I went back and confided in my friend and I told him what I thought. He was like, you can. And then I was like, you know what? Hold up. This isn't a decision that I should be making. This decision is for the young lady that was sitting in the passenger seat. So I go back and I ask my daughter, I'm like, hey, this and this is going on. We have the opportunity to sue these people. We can get some money back. She goes, no, I don't want to do it. I was like, what? You didn't even let me finish. She was like, because this isn't about money, Dad. She goes, God is going to take care of that man. He goes, I know what type of dad I got. And I'm getting a frog in my throat because my kid, man, is like, she's a bigger person than that man that arrested me. A kid. You get what I'm saying? But moving on, we just let it go. This happened a year ago, I think, a little bit more of a year ago. Yeah. And we just let it go, you know? Yep. And I came back and, you know, I mentioned the story to Ryan and I told him, like, you know what, like, your niece don't want to do this. And he's like, man, like, she a better person than any of us. And it's the truth, you know? And to this day, you know, like, me and her still talk about it and she goes, it's okay. God is going to take care of him. God is going to take care of everything. And that's what it is, man. I didn't file no complaint. I didn't file no nothing. I didn't do anything. I should have filed a complaint just so the man can be taken care of. But my faith in the Lord is so strong is that I know that God is going to show his wrong.
And you know what's funny about that, or not funny, but the crazy thing about the whole situation is 2 things. Is as officers, we have to do our due diligence when it comes to arresting people. There have been multiple times that I've actually pulled somebody over, ran them, and believed that they had a warrant out for their arrest. But because I was patient, quite frankly, one time somebody actually came back as being in the system as being an armed and dangerous felon, and he was a parolee at large. But the guy was adamant, this isn't me, I've never even been there. But sometimes we get so caught up as officers in our own pride that we just say, nah, bro, quit lying to me. And granted, people lie to us every single day.
Well, of course.
But it doesn't give us an excuse just because people lie to us that now I don't have to be patient to go and do my due diligence. Yeah. Because I am expected to do my due diligence to make sure that you are the person that it has the warrant out for their arrest. So there have been many times where I've actually done my due diligence, you know, compare tattoos or, you know, cross-reference different things to make sure, you know what, this isn't the person I thought it was. Forgive me. And I would explain everything. Hey, man, I'm going to take you out of handcuffs. You know, and I always tell people, just as much as I want to take bad people to jail, I want to make sure that I'm also not taking good people to jail as well. Yeah. And so we have an obligation as officers to make sure that we do our due diligence so that way that situation can be avoided. The second thing I want to end with, and I'm going to transition it to AJ before we wrap up this podcast, is you and I had a discussion when this all happened, and Tony almost called me immediately. And when we had that discussion, one of the things that I remember Tony saying to me was, bro, like, you know, I know good officers and I know that this isn't everybody. I know that this isn't policing on a totality. Yeah. And because of that, I'm not going to allow it to taint my vision of the profession as a whole. Of course. Because I know good men like you. Of course. And the second thing is that the work that you're doing, Ryan, with Breaking Barriers United, your podcast, gives me hope that my problem will be solved in another way. And it will. And so the reason I bring that up is because I want to encourage any officer that's out there listening to this. This is why it's important to be that big brother. This is why it's important to be that big homie, because you got to realize that even though a person may have a negative interaction with law enforcement, you have the opportunity to go change their perception of the way they view law enforcement just based on your interaction. Because Tony, on the other hand, like he said, most of his friends are cops now. And so because of that, that one situation isn't going to forever change his mind about law enforcement. But when you have that mentality that, hey, they don't like police and nothing can be done to change it, it's absolutely wrong, and Tony's living proof. So, AJ, I'm going to let you in with your final thoughts, man, because that's thanks for sharing that with us, Tony, because crazy story. But
Crazy.
AJ, I'm going to let you go ahead and end with your final thoughts.
Oh, man. So my final thoughts, I'll put an S at the end of that because there are multiple final thoughts that I have, are this. The first is we have a man who just opened up and shared a story about being 100% wrongfully arrested. As a police officer, this is a question to every police officer out there, everyone considering going into the field. Would you fault him for having some sort of negative feeling towards law enforcement? I want you to answer that question deep down inside. Would you fault him for the next time that he gets pulled over? Would you fault him for having some sort of animosity towards the police? Would you fault him for having some sort of hesitation to even pull over, right? We're talking about somebody who was pulled over and wrongfully stripped away from his child. His child seen him get arrested, rode around the city in a van, spent a night in jail, right? Like, would you fault him for maybe not immediately pulling over? Maybe he wants to go to an area that's more well lit or more heavily populated just in case something happens, right? The second thing is this, not towards police officers, but towards everybody else that listens to this. A lot of times we get wrapped up, especially growing up in the inner city in certain areas, with the lifestyle that we think we want, right? Like, we think we want the lifestyle of you wear expensive clothes, you got nice jewelry, you drive around in a nice car, you got a nice house. We don't care how you got it. We want it, right? So we tend to turn towards those influencers. And a lot of times those influencers in the inner city are drug dealers, gang members, they're out here robbing, jack boys, jack squads, whatever. So we glorify that lifestyle, right? I want that. The dope boy on the corner, he got a nice big chain, and the girls like him, and he drive around in rentals every single weekend, and he always in an Airbnb. Like, I want that lifestyle. But what you don't know is I could type in that person's name and pull up a list of mugshots. And how many times have we stripped that away from him, and he had to go back and get fronted from 3 people, and now he's in fear for his safety because he doesn't know if he's going to be able to give back the money to all 3 because he can only get enough to pay back 2. Like, these are things a lot of people don't know, right? And for every officer that's listening to this message and agreeing, who's going to tell these kids that? It needs to be you. It needs to be you. There's clearly not enough people out there who are giving this message to our youth. There's not. I'm telling you right now, I'm speaking from experience. I come from it. I still go there every single day and work it. I'm telling you, there's not enough people going to that area and telling our youth this message. So if no one else is going to do it, it has to be you. And if it's not going to be you, then I don't want to hear you complaining about the problems. I don't want to hear about it, because at the end of the day, it comes down to this. Your badge could bring light, or your badge could bring darkness. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You going to put that badge on knowing that it's going to be the light? You man enough to say, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. You man enough to be attacked and to take a step back and go, you know what? This young man or this young woman's probably going through something. Or this grown man or this grown woman's probably going through something. Maybe I need to be the light in their life to help redirect them. Or are you going to walk around being negative, complaining about your job, complaining about your boss, complaining about the lack of respect you get, and let your badge bring darkness? At the end of the day, you have to make that decision, but be prepared to live with the decision that you make.
Man, gems. Tony, man, what final thought can you give to our listeners out there whether it be a word of encouragement, whatever it may be, what can you leave our audience with today?
If I did it, you can do it. You know what I mean? I come from the streets. I come from, like, man, some crazy streets, you know, and well known. I mean, we've been on the news and stuff. And if I got out of that, you know, I was able to turn my whole life around to now being a corporate business owner. You know what I'm saying? Like you can do it too. And the key to it, though, this is the key to it, straight up. And this right here is like, this will put all the puzzles that are in your head together. Get on your knees and surrender to Jesus Christ, man.
Tell him, man. Tell him,
That's
man.
There it is. There it is. There it is.
The
man.
day I did that, man, everything fell into place. It was easy after that. I go to sleep happy with a smile, wake up with a smile,
Man.
you know, ready.
Man, you guys hear it from somebody else's mouth. And Tony, I just want to tell you, as your brother, bro, I'm proud of you, bro.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Man. And, you know, we all, I mean, Billy, AJ, Tony, you guys are starting to see the circle of friends that, you know, are in my life and in AJ's life and Billy and so forth and so on. Our circle, you'll notice, is made up of like-minded individuals. Not necessarily say that we all do the same thing, but the one commonality is, one, our faith in Jesus Christ, but two is like-minded individuals. And so that's how you start to turn and shift the momentum in your favor, so that way you can get out of that trouble sometimes. So I want to shout out, and anybody that's going through anything like with alcoholism, if whether you're law enforcement or not, drug addiction, pornography, whatever it is, we're gonna, again, I'm called to pray today. I feel like I'm called to pray for somebody out there today. But before we do that, I want to give my boy a shout out. Follow my boy on Instagram, Ethan's Journey
2012.
and also 2012 Ethan's Journey 2012, as well as Threshold. What's the
It's thhq.inc.
Yeah, so that's his own gym. Support him. If you live locally in Southern California, go support my boy. He has a phenomenal gym. I want you guys to be a part of something great, because that's what it is. And so, Billy, man, you have any? I mean, I kind of saw your eyes over there getting wide. Any parting thoughts? Anything like from the opposite end?
Yeah, well, just Tony, thank you. I mean, this was a powerful episode. So it was great to hear your story, and I guess to people listening, like, just knowing that there's real pain out there. So if someone's being outright rude to you or they're acting crazy, like, just try to see the pain in other people's lives. I think it's important, especially as believers. Just know, like, before we were saved, we've been somewhere too. You know, so like definitely. When you see someone, like, have compassion, try to see the pain in their life. Yeah.
And you know, I want to add on to that. If you were going through anything, man, and you need, I'm not even gonna call myself a big homie, but you need somebody to talk to, come and talk to me. You could come to my gym. You could go lift some weights. We can talk about it while we lifting some iron, or we could just chat on the phone. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, that's what I'm here for. You know what I mean? If my story and your story, and we put those stories together and we can change everybody else's life, I'm all with it. You know, like, always. I'm always a phone call away. Never, man, you need my shirt on my back, I'll take it off right now and give it to you. That's the type of person I am. You know, as I receive it, I give it, you know.
And he's not lying when he says that. I'm telling you, man, I've known Tony for some years, and, you know, I recently moved probably like 3 or 4 months ago, and I called Tony the day before. I was like, hey, bro, I need some help moving. You know, you really know who your friends are when it comes time to move.
Oh, you ain't lying. You ain't lying, brother.
Who your friends are when it comes time to move. And Tony didn't bat an eye, man. And so Tony was there, man. So I appreciate him as his friendship. And we're going to continue to have more guests on. AJ's actually going to be having some guests on his end. So we're going to get to know some of the people of Columbus here shortly. So we're looking forward to it. We thank you guys for tuning into the podcast. If you guys like this podcast, like I always say, please give us a 5-star rating, a 5-star review, and do it every single time. I mean, just because it continues to boost our ratings, and the more our ratings get boosted, the better our message gets heard around the world. And so please go on there. If you haven't done so already, please also join our private Facebook group, which is the It's Needed Podcast. where we also discuss a lot of these real issues on that platform as well. So what I'm feeling led to pray right now. So let's pray real quick and let's wrap it up. So dear Heavenly Father, we come before you, and I just ask that as we depart ways today, and you've given us the words and words to say on this latest episode of the podcast, I ask that you would just touch whoever is out there right now, whether it be an officer or a civilian, Lord. Just touch them right where they're at. The officers out there that are being hardened, Lord, because of this job, I ask that you would soften their hearts. If they find themselves becoming, more impatient with people or, more snappy with people, I'd ask that you would just stop them right in their tracks and but allow them to become, more softened and lead with empathy, so that way they understand that, other people are going through crises in their life, and also meet them and meet their needs of the trauma that they're experiencing. And then for the civilians out there, whoever, Lord, that's dealing with addiction, whether it be alcohol addiction, drug addiction, pornography, whatever it is, Lord, I ask that you would allow them to recognize it, one, and two, give it to you, allow them to give it over to you, Lord, so that way they can stop right in their tracks and just become a different person, like my man Tony here, Lord. We love you and thank you. We ask that they would do this stuff all in your name, and that they would ultimately just spread the gospel and spread the good message that you have come to deliver to each and every one of us. Allow them to remember that, even though we're all sinners, we're all saved by your grace and your mercy, Lord. So allow them not to condemn themselves, allow the enemy to get out of their ears, and allow them to remember that they're ultimately loved by you no matter what. So we ask these things for in your son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Hey, phenomenal episode. We love you guys. We love our listeners. We thank you for tuning in every single week. And if you guys have any recommendations on people you want to hear, guests you want to hear, whatever it is, please feel to reach out, and we'll make it happen. So with that being said, we'll see y'all next week.
Peace.